Igor Charkovsky, who created this whole water birth movement in Russia. He started in the 60s and continued through the 70s. I joined him in 82, and at that time he was mainly preparing women for birth through working with them psychically. He is this Siberian shaman, a very powerful seer, and one of those medicine people that people would go on an airplane to fly to Moscow, where he was doing his healing sessions, because he would just sit with his eyes closed and wave his arm in front of a person and then start telling them what happened in their family, with his mother, with his grandmother, and it was in that female lineage that he would find certain origins of the symptoms that a person is having right now. So he would just start telling stories about the life in this family. So your grandmother ran away with this gypsy king, and her family disowned her, and then their child was kidnapped, and just sort of unravel this maternal storyline. And each session would be about 2 hours long, and then you would see, like, I worked very closely with him, and I saw miracles right in front of my eyes happening when symptoms will disappear because of his conviction that he can cut those umbilical cords that going from those past situations into present time. And he said that basically all those past situations carry this energetic pipeline through time. So when he was achieving his healing result, it somehow was affecting the mother and the grandmother and the daughter and her daughter. It sort of was going quite permeatingly. So he was basically the source of information for us. And there were, for example, situations when he would deliver a baby and everything is fine, but then the father of the baby would go to the other room to call his mom. And the moment she hears that the child was born, the child stops breathing. That was an example that really brought our attention to a reality of those unseen connections that we have within the family. When turns out that the mother of this father of the baby really did not want this child. She thought that the woman was not the right one for her son, that he could do better, that that the baby was just an excuse to trap her son. So she never blessed and never resolved her willingness to accept the woman and this child. So throughout pregnancy she was just resentful, but the whole news that this baby is already here just knocked her out of her senses. She started screaming and yelling, and the baby, who was already something like 15-20 minutes old, checked out. The message was so strong that baby decided to, well, it's not a conscious decision. See, it was just, it created this moment of dissociation. And for baby, a brand new baby, that's enough. Babies are not very rooted. babies are not very strongly connected to this three-dimensional world, so they can easily check in and out. The good news was that Igor was right there, and he heard the screaming on the phone. It was so loud that he heard it in the next room. And he just instantly jumped to it, and it's like, what just happened? What happened? And he started doing his thing and cutting the cords between them, and 3 or 4 minutes later, the baby took a breath and came back. When that connection between the baby and the grandmother was stopped. So that situation really brought our attention that not only we need to work with the woman, but with the whole environment into which the baby is being brought in. The father of the baby, they're both sets of parents, the siblings, whatever it was in the woman's world that could be counterproductive, counterintentional to health and well-being of this mama-baby unit. And I can sit until cows come home and tell you story after story after story, because every couple that was coming into this movement became a movement very soon. And each couple was bringing their own story, and their journey was sort of unfolding in front of us, and we could not help but notice the patterns of similarities, that all the stories were building into a very clear picture how relationships in the family are accumulating certain emotional, psychological field that is affecting the situation, and just approach it mechanically didn't seem wise. Because if we were working emotionally and just working with the energy behind the story instead of working with the story, that was much more successful, and it was going really fast, because very soon it became clear that the amount of people that was coming into classes and wanted to have this experience was exceeding Igor's capacity to work with individually. So we started diligently looking for what could replace and be equally effective as his sessions, because he could only work with that many people a day, each session taking a couple hours.